Okay guys, this is going to be a really brief sort of review on the G&P internals. I just got one of these gearboxes, not from a gun, purchased to have me work on it to tune it up to fit in a G&P gun. So while I'm breaking it down, I figure I might as well show you guys what I think about the actual internals of the gun and what parts I think are good, what parts I think are bad, etc., etc. This is essentially me reviewing all G&P internals because they're all pretty much the same, with a couple minor exceptions here and there. So let's get started breaking this open. Let's see here. Gotta break the sort of stiffness on all the screws here. I should also mention that G&P recently has changed a lot of their wiring, I think. Instead of the wet noodle wiring that they were going with before, they're now using this sort of 16 gauge, I think it's Teflon based wiring. It's a lot stiffer than their old stuff though. I sort of like the wet noodle wiring. Some people don't because it's hard to position, but when you're putting the gearbox together, the actual wiring tends not to try and jump out and pull other things with it. I like that about the wet noodle wiring. Some people obviously disagree with me just because the way that they like to bend and sort of position their stuff they're very particular about that. Not me. The most trouble I have is getting the gearbox back together with wires sort of jumping out, and that really bugs me when I'm doing that sort of stuff. Let's see. Also, G&P uses these motor contacts that are kind of interesting. They're screw terminals instead of just the spade connectors that everyone else uses. I quite like them actually. They screw straight into the motor. It makes it a lot easier. They don't pop out at all, which is really nice. The biggest downside though is that G&P is the only company out there using a screw terminal system, and that sort of bums me out because I really like it and I wish more companies would use it, but it's not really an industry standard if you want to think that airsoft has any standards in the industry. Okay, so let's break this open and see what we got here. Okay, make sure this is all in frame. And this is the M120 version of gearbox. Oh, that's a big spring. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so let's start off with, I guess, the gearbox shell itself. I like the gearbox shell. It's on spec. There's nothing really that I dislike about it. It's just a really standard gearbox shell, 8mm. Does have some reinforcement back at the spur, but it's not too excessive like you see a lot of other companies, especially the Chinese companies, using. I really hate it when it's sort of over reinforced toward the back here because you don't really need any of that reinforcement there. I don't think I've ever seen a gearbox that's snapped out near the spur and just thrown everything back. It's usually up toward the front, which this also does have some reinforcement here. I do know that if you push these gearboxes too hard without sorbo, they tend to snap at that common failure point. It's very easy to radius these edges though, so that's what I usually do. And on my DSG, it's running this gearbox shell with these radiused and 70D sorbo, and it's running just fine. Okay, let's pull out. Ugh. It doesn't look like someone had their period all over the piston. Sorry for the graphic picture there, but that's what comes to mind when I'm breaking this thing apart. Kind of nasty. I don't really like whatever red lube they're using in this. The piston assembly, it's sort of a love-hate thing. As a stock piston assembly, I don't mind it. The stock piston itself is, fairly decent. The polycetyl, whatever they're using, palm piston material is okay. You can strip it. It's very prone to pre-engagement damage. Let's see, the metal teeth hold up just fine. The piston head is an odd sort of discussion topic. It's sealed. It tends to, let me check the compression actually really quick while I'm here. Yeah, flawless. So perfect compression right out of the box. Good job, G&P. The piston head though, They call it the G&P explosive piston head, and there's a lot of jokes going around because the actual piston head is known, because of the way that it's ported up here, to shatter into like a million tiny little pieces and scatter out the gearbox when it's being shot. So I've never had that happen personally. All the G&P piston heads that I've used have turned out fine, but I can't ignore other people's sort of experiences. So I wouldn't recommend this piston assembly like as an aftermarket part, but you know, as a stock, or if you've got them laying around, they work just fine. Don't push them too hard. The plastic is a little bit on the weak side, but it's, you know, it's not a bad assembly. Let's see. Moving on, I guess, with the air seal components. Let's take a look at the air seal assembly here. Let me see here. What else can you say about it? It's a Type O cylinder. The Type O cylinder seals really well with the single O-ring cylinder head and the O-ringed nozzle. All these parts work really well. I just left them stock in my DSG. Did I? Yeah, I think I left most of those parts stock in my DSG, just because the compression was perfect, so I don't really need to change it. No real complaints here. Could use another O-ring on the cylinder head. That would be nice, but it seals perfectly, so what else can I ask for? If it does start to leak, I would just wrap another layer of Teflon tape around it and solve that problem pretty easily. The tappet plate. I'm not a huge fan of the tappet plates on the G&Ps, just because, I mean, not that they're bad, I mean, I guess they give a good amount of flex, but I never really liked how, if you notice the fin right here, see if that'll get it to focus or anything like that. Yeah, if you notice the fin is just a straight triangle as opposed to like the stuff that's notched out, and even you can see, if I can get it to focus here, even if you take a look at it right here, you can notice how where it's starting to deform from the sector gear smacking against it. I would prefer that it's something notched out and sort of shaped to it, but I mean, it's got enough flex in it. Not overly flexy, but I mean, it works as a stock setup. No real complaints there. I would change it though. Let's see, next part. Let's go with the gears then. The gears are an interesting topic too, just because I don't really like them. Let's see, the sector gear is okay. I've seen these strip out before, but the sector gear, as I see it right now, is okay. Just your standard 18-to-1 set. It's got the delayer clip sort of built into the sector, so that's nice. That's always a nice touch when they do that beforehand. I don't need to modify it. No real problems with the sector gears. When I said I saw them strip out before, it's usually because bad shimming, or just way overuse. Like just hundreds of thousands of rounds, it was going to die anyway. The bigger issue usually at hand is the spur gear. I don't know if they've fixed it since I last heard reports of these, but I know that the axles are prone to snapping on these, so that's something that they should fix. Or I don't know if they have, but it's an issue that needs to be brought up. Oh yeah, the shims on the G&P are these sort of, I thought they were copper, but I heard from somewhere else, I think it was Hunter Seeker, that mentioned that these are not copper, it's something else, or bronze or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of these. They're nice for like really fine-tune adjustment, but the actual shims bend really easily. I don't know if it's just on certain gears, but I noticed a lot of them on my work table just were sort of warped. It could also be the combination of other shims that I was using with it. Okay, let's see, where do we go next? Oh, it's interesting. The actual, take a look, the wiring is actually sort of folded in on itself on the black side. Interesting. That's sort of weird, never seen that before. Let me see what's next. Sort of cleaning this up as I go. Like I said, the wiring, they're using a new style of wiring. I like it. It sort of looks like high quality wiring, although electronics are not my specialty, or actually strong suit at all. Trigger contacts are nice. I really like the way that these are molded. See if I can zoom in here. I really like the way these are molded. There's no really bad seam lines or anything like that. They work fine. The only real complaint that I have is If you look at the actual solder points, there's not a whole lot of space to solder onto them, and that can be bad if you're bad at soldering like I am, and you are installing a MOSFET and you need to solder in that extra gate wire. There's not enough space sometimes on there for me to fit it in, although you can fit it in, don't get me wrong, it's just that I suck at soldering. Let's see, moving on. Oh, the cutoff lever, I don't really like it. It's just overly soft, and I mean it does its job for the most part, but if you're running something high stress like a DSG, you're probably going to want to get a nicer cutoff. The anti-reversal etches I really don't like, or actually I should correct that. I don't like these old style. I'm actually looking at this now, and this might actually work. Looks like a new style G&P cutoff lever. It feels like a much harder sort of metal. Let me check real quick. Yeah, it is steel. It's really sharp right here, and I sort of like that it'll catch in really easily. But I know that with the old style G&P cutoff levers, they had a tendency to snap. Like this material is just really brittle, which is not good when the whole design of this thing is to snap into place really quickly. I also have a problem with the way that these are friction fitted. If you take a look, you see if you can see the sort of notches where they press them together, and then it sort of friction fits between this piece right here and the actual shaft. They have a problem with the old style where you can see that it just sort of glides around, and it still functions as a cutoff, as an anti-reversal hatch, but this is just sloppy. I don't like this. I guess the other one is steel too, but this one just feels a lot stronger, so good job G&P. I didn't know they improved this, so I would say that these you can probably run for a while, but if it breaks, don't be too surprised. Good news is anti-reversal latches, especially the cheap JG ones, XYT, are only like $6 from e-bike, so if you need to replace it, it's not a big deal. Let me see here. More shims. Okay, the springs I usually replace anyway. This seems like a fairly long spring. It's not too thick, but it seems like it'll do the job. The spring guides are very heavy. They're not bearing spring guides, but they're spaced like bearing spring guides. I actually have this whole ring right here. I wonder if I could add thrust bearings that I have laying around from old parts and stuff on here, but I mean it does its job. It sort of rotates, I guess. It's not an aftermarket replacement part, but for coming with the gun, you might as well use it. It'll take the place of bearings. Let's see, what else do I have here? Cutoff lever springs. Safety latch right down here. Does its job, nothing too special. Other side, okay, talking about the selector plate, I really don't like these. First of all, I mean, you don't need it, but it's not metal plated right here. Neither is the trigger contacts, though. It's not like I need that circuit to complete, but I do like it when it sort of snaps into place, pulling over those extra sets of contacts that they have right here sometimes. I know that some other people have problems with them, but it's just something I noticed. More than that, though, the G&P selector plates are very brittle. I've actually snapped some of these by just flicking my selector switch back and forth and just doing this, and it just snaps right here. It's very brittle. Would not recommend as a replacement part at all. Or replacement or upgrade part. Just avoid those. Oh shit, I dropped it. Oh, never mind, it's right there. Okay, talking about the bearings. These are one of the nicest parts on a G&P. Is actually their bearings. They're steel bearings. They're supposedly Japanese made. From what I've read and seen, they fit very nicely in the gearbox shell. I would super glue these in though, just so you can get your shimming perfect. The G&P bearings, though, are really nice 8mm steel bearings that are not only smooth. Let me see if I can get a spin test right here. I mean, not only are they really smooth, they're probably the smoothest steel bearings that I've used in airsoft. But they're very strong. I know that this guy's said he's running like a 150 DSG, M150 DSG on him. No problems with him, so that's a good sign. Don't quote me on that. That's just from memory. I could be wrong, but I mean I've used them no problem. Whereas SHS bearings have just crushed on me. So I would definitely recommend these bearings if you don't want to modify ceramics, which ironically I have a set of right here. I'll probably do a review on these later. You've already seen the videos though. These are just the best bearings on the market right now. But yeah, I mean, they're great. I mean, these are great stock bearings. Even as a replacement or upgrade bearings, definitely go for these, the G&P bearings. Let me see, and I guess the only thing left to really talk about here is the spring guide. I mean, not the spring guide, the motor. The motor itself is the stock G&P motors and G&P M120. I like them for being a stock motor. They definitely give the gun a lot of speed, or the G&P stock G&P guns a lot of speed. They're not always the most efficient. They are only running on ferrite magnets, but I mean, what else are you really gonna ask for a stock gun? They're fast. I'm pretty inefficient though. They suck a lot of power. I don't recommend them as upgrade motors. A lot of people use them, but it just, for your money, you're gonna put down about $38 for a G&P M120. You might as well buy, for $45, you might as well buy like a Matrix, or $30 any of like the SHS ones, even the ones that have neo magnets in them, or saving up for $48, $50 for a Lonex motor. I guess that's really all to say. The hop-up chamber, I'm just going to keep it really brief. I like these chambers. For being real basic $22 chambers, they're really solid. I do prefer Lonex, but the G&P chambers fit better in the G&P bodies, so I sometimes go with these. So yeah, I guess that's it. If you have any other questions about the G&P Gearbox, or just whatever else, let me know in the comment section down below. Otherwise, we'll see you later, guys.